Hi everyone, I'm back, and this time I'm talking about Bentley Little's 1995 book University. This was first released a year earlier under the title of Night School, but then for some reason it was re-released under the different name of University. In my introduction video to Bentley Little's work, I had said that he has two basic types of novel. The first type are social satires, where he'll take some institution, it can be a store or a housing association or an insurance agency, in this case a university, and he'll look at how these institutions corrupt people and how, like, what happens when people conglomerate into thoughtless, mindless masses. And the second category is just standalone stuff, where he'll write about anything from vampires through to strange cults. So obviously this is category one. It's the second novel he published in category one. The first was The Mailman in 1991, which I've reviewed. And he's really starting to hit his stride with this book. I like this a lot. He hasn't perfected category one yet. I mean, the social satires told by a horror, he'd perfected in 1998 with his book The Store, which I've also reviewed. But here he's taken a giant leap forward in his writing. This is the first book of his where I think he's in real control of what he's trying to accomplish. Story-wise, not a lot really to say. It's about an evil university which is turning the students into these mindless drone figures who are committing horrific acts of evil. The first part of the novel is fantastic. It's just relentless pace, so much action going on, and kind of unusually for Bentley Little, his novels tend to have quite a large cast, but all of the people here are interesting. I liked following all of their stories. The main character is this jaded professor guy who's, I mean, Bentley Little usually has a character in his novels who are himself, and they give him a chance to hold court on his various opinions on everything from progressive rock music through to the state of horror fiction at the time. And in this case, yeah, we've got a professor who's teaching a class on horror literature, so that gives Bentley Little a chance to give out his own thoughts on that theme, which is interesting to read. Before I forget, this book, Bentley Little gives a shout out to our friend Richard Lehman and his novel The Cellar. I don't think I've ever read a book where Richard Lehman's The Cellar gets referenced by another horror writer. So kudos to Bentley Little for that. And there's also an odd reference in this book to Clive Barker. I can't decide whether it's complimentary or critical. He just gives this cryptic reference about how Clive Barker has changed the horror game, but I can't really tell from how he wrote it whether he approves of how Barker changed the game. But anyway, so yeah, Richard Lehman and Clive Barker are mentioned in this book. The main character is this about 40-something-year-old professor of horror literature, and then we've also got the editor of the newspaper, the university newspaper, and they all eventually come together to fight the forces of evil. Now, the second half of the book isn't that good because it becomes a little bit silly towards the end when we find out that the university, it's not haunted as such, it's just alive, and all the universities of America are reaching across to form this huge, vague, formless evil whose ultimate purpose isn't really known. But usually in Bentley Little's books, evil is just a force which wants to control human beings and strip away our agency and our free will. Fair enough, I mean, that is a horrifying thing. And that's what happens here, but it does get a little bit silly. And the second thing to prepare for in this book is just, as with all Bentley Little novels, is how hilariously unrealistic it is. And I've noted down 2 pages to illustrate what I mean. So at one point, they're researching what's been going on in various universities of America, and they come up with this list. Let me read it to you here where my finger is. Strange statistics, to be sure, overwhelming, but even more overwhelming and much more frightening was the anecdotal evidence that Stevens presented. The first-hand accounts of the horrific events that had supposedly taken place at the schools. Okay, now here we go. At Sanderson College, a tightly knit group of druidic, tree-worshipping English history and philosophy professors castrated the male student with the highest GPA each semester for 3 straight years, nailing the students' severed genitalia to an elm tree in front of the campus in order to ensure health, happiness, and long life to members of the college community. Yeah, you'd think you would have read about that in the papers, wouldn't you? Next, at Oakhurst College, the football team, the basketball team, and 2 fraternities had conducted weekly human sacrifices in the gym. Enough blood had been gathered from the victims to fill the school's Olympic-sized pool to a depth of 3 feet, and the president of the college and his wife swam 20 laps in the blood and then copulated standing up at the 5-foot mark to the cheers of the students as part of a ritual that was supposed to cure their daughter of Down syndrome. Again, that one didn't make the news for some reason. And finally, at Springfield University, a group of 15 visiting European immunologists attending a conference on AIDS research were gang raped in the health center by 100 HIV positive students. All right. All of this has been going on around the universities of America, but for some reason it hasn't quite alerted the authorities yet. And then focusing in on our university, where all the action takes place, here's a snapshot of what's been going on there over the last few years. 1 second. Here we go. Where my thumb is. It's a good thing you're sitting down for this one. He unfolded the sheet of paper in his hand. Hard statistics. 87 suicides, 30 murders, 418 rapes, 69 missing persons since 1980, so in other words over the last 10-15 years. The thing is, the violence has been steadily increasing in both frequency and intensity. So you would think that a university that has a record over the last 10 years of 87 suicides, 30 murders, 418 rapes would draw the attention of the police, but apparently not. And like this, all throughout this book, there is insane stuff going on, which is just kind of passed over. It never alerts anyone that there might be something going on. I mean, after each horrific event, one of the characters will say, yeah, there's something wrong in this school. And another character, you got that tropish, skeptical one, who'll say, well, I'm not so sure, weird things happen in the world. That can get a bit tiresome after a while. But the point I want to make is that I think Bentley Little writes his novels with a huge beaming smile on his face. Nothing is off limits. He comes up with some of the most insanely over-the-top scenarios you can imagine, and he writes them down and he puts them in there, and I like that. I respect it. I love Bentley Little when he's just going nuts, and then when he tries to explain stuff, that's when it falls apart, because this stuff can't be explained in any rational way. So in the end, what he comes up with is this convoluted idea that the university is alive as an entity and it's reaching out to all the other universities. I know it ties into the satire element. I know it ties in with his themes about, was it Abraham Lincoln who said universities are where pebbles get polished but diamonds get dimmed. And I think that's what Bentley Little is going for here. Institutions of learning, they can kill intelligence as much as they can promulgate it. On the whole, though, it's a really good book, and I highly recommend it because I love the setting. I love the relentless pace of it, the action, and this has some of my favorite Bentley Little characters in it. So that's going to do it. Bentley Little's University from 1995. I'll be back sooner rather than later with another review because I'm almost finished with it. Until then, take care of yourselves and bye for now.